This man sold Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, the White House, and the Statue of Liberty, but he may never have even existed. How is that possible? Let's find out on this episode of Hustlers, Gamblers, and Entrepreneurs. Today we're talking about the legend of Arthur Ferguson. He was a Scottish actor living in London shortly after World War One. One day he noticed an American tourist admiring Nelson's Column and Trafalgar Square. Ferguson struck up a conversation and began explaining that Britain was in a serious financial pinch after the war. The government, he confided, had quietly decided to sell several national landmarks. Naturally, however, the matter had to remain a complete secret. The tourist was fascinated about the possibility and agreed to keep everything hush-hush. Ferguson explained that Nelson's Column was available for purchase for just £6,000. The tourist excitedly agreed and Ferguson collected a deposit, then disappeared. However, that was only the beginning of Ferguson's shenanigans. Over the next several years, he sold Big Ben, Tower Bridge, and even Buckingham Palace. His victims were all wealthy tourists who were flattered to be included in what appeared to be an exclusive opportunity that was unavailable to ordinary people. Eventually, so many complaints began to pile up that Ferguson decided it was time to leave Britain. So he moved to America, where all his rich dupes had come from. Then the story becomes truly ridiculous because Ferguson allegedly started selling American landmarks too. The White House, the Capitol Building, the Washington Monument, and finally, the Statue of Liberty. Ferguson convinced an Australian businessman that Lady Liberty could be purchased for $100,000. This time, however, he had gone too far. The authorities found, arrested, convicted, and imprisoned him. At least, that's the version of events that you'll hear in countless books, websites, videos, and articles. There's only one problem. Researchers have spent decades trying to verify the story, and they keep running into the same obstacle. Arthur Ferguson seems to have never left a footprint anywhere. No contemporary news reports, no court records, no prison records, no reliable documentation from that time, period, nothing. Granted, historical records do disappear all the time. People fall through the cracks, records get destroyed, names get changed, but not a single mention anywhere, no court records, no prison records, no birth records. In 2 countries, every single record about Arthur Ferguson got misplaced, destroyed, or erased. For someone who supposedly sold some of the most famous landmarks in the world, then got arrested and imprisoned for it, you would expect somebody to have written something down somewhere. Instead, the earliest versions of the story seem to appear many years after the event supposedly occurred, and every retelling adds new details, new victims, new landmarks, new amounts of money. That has led many historians to suspect that Arthur Ferguson may be less of a historical feature and more of a modern folk tale, a legend, a story that grew larger every time someone repeated it. The story of Arthur Ferguson may be completely fictional, but here's what's fascinating. We're still talking about it 100 years later. It doesn't matter that it's not true. It doesn't matter that it's not documented. It doesn't matter that no historian can prove that any of it ever happened. We're still talking about it. We're still talking about it because it's an amazing story, and people remember stories. And more importantly for us, people buy stories. As a matter of fact, they spend an incredible amount of money buying stories, far more than they would ever spend on buying any product or service. Nobody buys a Rolex watch because they need to know what time it is when a $15 Timex works just fine. Nobody buys a Bugatti because they need transportation. A key will get you where you want to go more reliably for less money. Nobody has MV Group USA build a home for shelter when a D.R. Horton home will keep you dry and comfortable. They buy the story those things tell about them, the story they can tell themselves, and the stories others will tell about them. The watch tells a story, the car tells a story, the house tells a story, and that's what makes Arthur Ferguson so fascinating. Because even if the entire thing was invented, it proves its own lesson. A compelling story can spread around the world. It can survive for decades. It can appear in books, articles, and documentaries. It can become accepted as fact, and sometimes people will believe it, even when the evidence is missing. Which means Arthur Ferguson may have pulled off one of the greatest confidence scams in history without ever existing at all. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Hustlers, Gamblers, and Entrepreneurs. And remember, whether you're building a business or selling a product, Always ask yourself one question. Am I selling the thing or am I selling the story?